What's going on, everyone? So, the upcoming I Know What You Did Last Summer, hopefully, fingers crossed, we get an awesome chase scene. Because I really do think that this needs to have an awesome chase scene because the original had an awesome chase scene. You think of Helen Shivers, right? Played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. And it's one of the best chase scenes, extended chase scenes, really, that has been in slasher horror movie history, right? I mean, it was an excellent, just tension building, just moment after moment after moment, from the moment the police car goes and stops to the moment that you think that she's about to see the daylight and be saved, and boom, she's running and trying to get there, and then boom, gets taken out, right? And it's just like that moment where you're just like, wow, this is a great chase scene. And you think of some of the iconic chase scenes over the course of horror movie history, right? Obviously, like Scream with like Gale Weathers, and you have like urban legends with like Tara Reid, and then you have again, I Know What You Did Last Summer with Sarah Michelle Gellar, right? Like there's several horror films that have really done a really good job of just building the tension through those chase scenes, right? Scream 2 is another like excellent one, particularly with the panels and stuff where Ghostface kind of, you're just like on the edge of your seat, like, oh, is he about to get her? She's about to turn that corner, right? And then she goes in the thing, doors locked, and she's like, oh no, and you're like, it's coming, like the buildup is coming, and then turns out that it's Dewey that ends up getting poked a couple times, right? And it's like, we need those type of scenes, right? You need those tension building scenes, and you need to kind of, have that thing that really kind of, has us all there, like who kind of glued to the screen, right? Obviously, you're going to have high stakes scenes and tension building scenes and things like that, period, that are going to lead to deaths and all that stuff. But when you're talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer in particular, I hope that we get just a really good quality chase scene, right? We've, even in the trailer, you get a couple quality like tension building scenes and kind of the setups and established, but it's more than that. Like the thing about the chase scene is that it really kind of adds to the tension, right? Like you look at things like, sticking with Scream as example, like Scream 5, Wes, played by Dylan Minnette, right? Wes had a scene where you're slowly kind of building this tension throughout the course of the scene. And you have this expectation that is being built in your mind, right? And he goes and opens the fridge, and the typical Hollywood trope is that like he's going to shut the fridge and boom, he's going to get it, right? Fridge shuts, boom, nothing. You're like, okay, right? Then the cabinet opens, right? And you're like, okay, here it is. This is the moment, right? Cabinet opens, close the cabinet, boom, he's going to get it. Nothing, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, you you finally get it. And it's just like you built the expectation, subverted that expectation, built that expectation, right? And it was good pace. It didn't drag on too long, right? It was like one of the better scenes, in my opinion, as far as like building that tension, building that pace throughout that scene. And then, like, even like when Mindy goes down into the basement and stuff like that, right? Like building, like we have this expectation because we're familiar with the franchise, and you're expecting something specific to happen. That specific doesn't happen. And then this other thing happens, right? Like those type of moments, those type of things really can make or break a movie in a lot of ways, right? Particularly in the horror space. So sticking with, I Know What You Did Last Summer, right? We have an expectation on, the Hook Man and how this is going to play out in certain scenes, right? Like, you have very similarities to, the previous films and the previous installments for those that are familiar with the franchise. And then, you're kind of getting to a scene where you're kind of like, okay, the buildup, you want to build and continue to build that tension. And then, have that lead in an easy way to kind of build that tension and subvert expectations and have us on the edge of our seats. And just that buildup is through chase scenes, right? To where, it's like, they're not going to get away, like what the end result's going to be, but, you're still kind of they're holding out hope, or they knock out the killer and the killer's just kind of laying there, and they're like, oh, okay, here's the moment where and then they, right, like, are they going to do this, are they going to do that? And you kind of start to paint a picture in your head. You start to kind of build this process in your head. And that's something that I really hope I Know What You Did Last Summer, this 2025 version, does well, right? Like, because again, you're talking about looking at the original I Know What You Did Last Summer, did such a good job of those moments, right? Did a good job of like really kind of drawing in the audience, and you have these things, and even like Julie in her boat, in the boat scene, right? When she runs into Ben Willis, and she thinks that at first that he's saving her from Ray, and then turns out no, he's the one that is trying to take you out all along. And then you kind of have this scene, and she's trying to run away, and he's she's going through these different corridors and stuff on the boat, and he's just there every step of the way because he's familiar with the boat and stuff. And you kind of have this expectation, like, is she gonna die? Is she gonna this? Is she gonna that? Right? And then Ray gets on the boat, and he's trying to save the day and be the hero and kiss the girl and all that stuff. And it's just, you want those tension builds, you want those moments, right? Where you have kind of like like the cars where he's being chased by the car, right? He's running, and or the picture in the thing, right? Like where he's like, oh, like, who's here, who's doing that, right? Like, it just, all of these scenes, all of these moments, again, do a great job of just building tension, right? Raise the stakes. You're like, are you gonna live? Are you gonna die? Oh no, he's about to die. They're about to take him out, and then he ends up living, right? Ends up dying later on, but he ends up living in the moment. Right? So you had this expectation. You're familiar with this type of scene, kind of drawing your own conclusions before the end result, and then ultimately, boom, right? It doesn't happen. But you still had that tension, you still had that built, you still had that anticipation. And then, but then like, okay, it's coming. He's meeting his end at some point. And then, fast forward, whatever it is, 20 minutes in the movie or whatever, boom, all of a sudden, there's the moment. Right, he gets taken out on the balcony, right, while Helen is doing her little thing, right, and standing there waiting, right. So it's those kind of moments that I hope we get more of in the new installment in 2025. Obviously you want the good quality kills, you want some craziness, whatever, but you also want just some good tension built, some good chasing, some good quality moments that are very memorable. Those are the ones that you walk out of the theater going like, hey. Like, man, that was a great scene. What about this? You remember when like, those are the moments. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? And Phil, what are your thoughts? Agree with me? Disagree with me? Kind of mixed in the middle? Either way, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.